Imagine the silence that blankets a landscape before the first witness arrives. A silence stretching back through epochs, through eras when no human eye had yet opened to behold the world's wonders. Now imagine the ground itself whispering secrets through volcanic ash hardened into stone, through impressions left when the earth was still soft and waiting, through the testimony of three figures walking together across a plain in what would one day be called Tanzania, their feet pressing into freshly fallen ash from Mount Satamon, leaving behind what would become the most intimate connection we would ever have with our ancient ancestors. A moment frozen not in amber but in volcanic glass. A fleeting instant when three beings who were not quite human but no longer apes walked together under an African sky 3.5 million years ago. This is the story of those footprints, discovered at a place called Laetoli in 1976 by paleontologist Mary Leakey and her team, footprints that would shatter everything we thought we knew about human evolution, footprints that proved beyond any doubt that our ancestors walked upright long before their brains grew large, long before they fashioned the first stone tools, long before anything we might recognize as distinctly human emerged from the crucible of evolutionary time. And in those footprints we find not just the physical evidence of bipedalism but something far more haunting, far more human. The suggestion of companionship, of family, of individuals who walk together through their world just as we walk through ours. The Pliocene epoch stretched across nearly 3 million years, from approximately 5.3 to 2.6 million years ago, and it was during this vast temporal canvas that the stage was set for one of evolution's most dramatic transformations, the emergence of creatures who would eventually give rise to humanity itself. The world of the Pliocene was simultaneously familiar and alien, a planet recognizable in its basic geography yet utterly transformed in climate and ecology compared to what had come before, and it was a world in flux, cooling steadily from the warmer temperatures of the preceding Miocene epoch, experiencing dramatic shifts in rainfall patterns, watching as forests receded and grasslands expanded across vast stretches of Africa, creating new ecological pressures and opportunities that would shape the destiny of countless species, including our own ancestors. In East Africa, where the Great Rift Valley was slowly tearing the continent apart, volcanic activity punctuated the landscape with mountains that belched ash and lava across the plains. And it was this volcanic activity, ironically, that would preserve for us the most precious evidence of our ancestors' existence, creating natural time capsules that captured fleeting moments in geological amber. The climate was not stable but oscillated between wetter and drier periods, driven by orbital variations in Earth's relationship with the sun, creating a patchwork environment of woodlands, grasslands, and gallery forests that followed rivers and streams through increasingly open country. And in this mosaic habitat, early hominins found both challenge and opportunity. The expansion of grasslands during the Pliocene was not a simple linear progression but a complex dance of advance and retreat. With C4 grasses, those tropical grasses adapted to hot, dry conditions, gradually becoming more prominent in the landscape even as pockets of forest persisted in favorable locations, creating a world where creatures who could exploit multiple habitats, who could move between trees and ground with equal facility, found themselves at a distinct advantage. The fossil record tells us that by 3.5 million years ago, the landscape around what is now Laetoli was a mixture of open woodland and grassland, with acacia trees dotting the plains and denser vegetation following watercourses, a world inhabited by an astonishing diversity of creatures. Elephants with downturned tusks for digging, three-toed horses that would leave their own tracks in the Laetoli ash, rhinoceroses, giraffes, hyenas, and big cats, all sharing this landscape with small bands of upright, walking apes who would, millions of years hence, come to dominate the planet in ways no species had ever done before. Australopithecus afarensis, the species to which those three Laetoli walkers almost certainly belonged, was itself a creature of remarkable contradiction, a testament to evolution's genius for compromise and adaptation. Standing only about 3 to 4 feet tall, with females considerably smaller than males, These beings possessed bodies that were simultaneously ape-like and human-like, a mosaic of features that reflected their transitional status in the great sweep of primate evolution. Their skulls housed brains that were scarcely larger than those of modern chimpanzees, typically ranging from 375 to 500 cubic centimeters compared to the 1,300 to 1,400 cubic centimeters found in modern humans. Yet these small brains were sufficient to navigate a complex social world, to learn and remember the locations of food sources and water holes, to recognize friend and foe, to communicate through a vocabulary of gestures and vocalizations that we can only imagine. Their faces projected forward in a pronounced snout, with large teeth adapted for chewing tough plant material, with massive jaw muscles that necessitated bony crests on their skulls for attachment. Yet their canine teeth were much reduced compared to other apes, lacking the long, sharp fangs used for display and combat in chimpanzees and gorillas, suggesting perhaps a different social structure, a reduction in male-male competition, or simply a shift to a diet that no longer required such weapons. But it was in their postcranial skeleton, in the bones below the skull, that Australopithecus afarensis revealed its most remarkable adaptations, for this was a creature fundamentally redesigned for upright walking. The pelvis was broad and bowl-shaped, providing attachment points for muscles that stabilize the body on one leg during the walking stride, the femur or thigh bone, angled inward from hip to knee in what anatomists call a valgus angle, bringing the knee under the body's center of gravity and preventing the side-to-side waddle that characterizes bipedal walking in apes. The foot possessed an arch structure that acts as a spring during walking and a big toe aligned with the other toes rather than opposable as in climbing apes, allowing for a powerful push-off with each step. Yet alongside these undeniably human features existed traits that spoke of a heritage in the trees. Curved fingers and toes suggesting a maintained capacity for climbing, relatively long arms compared to the legs, a rib cage that was somewhat funnel-shaped like an ape's rather than barrel-shaped like a human's, features that have sparked ongoing debate about how much time these creatures spent in trees versus on the ground. The current consensus suggests that while Australopithecus afarensis was fully committed to upright walking when on the ground, individuals probably still climbed trees regularly, perhaps to escape predators, to sleep safely at night, or to access food resources unavailable to purely terrestrial creatures, making them generalists capable of exploiting multiple ecological niches in their complex habitat. The discovery of Lucy, the famous Australopithecus afarensis skeleton, on November 24, 1974, by paleoanthropologist Donald Johanson and graduate student Tom Gray in the Hadar region of Ethiopia's Afar Triangle, represented a watershed moment in paleoanthropology, providing the first relatively complete skeleton of an early hominin and allowing scientists to reconstruct in unprecedented detail what these ancient ancestors looked like and how they moved through their world, consisting of 47 bones. Representing approximately 40% of a complete skeleton, Lucy was a young adult female who stood about 3.5 feet tall and weighed perhaps 60 to 65 pounds, and she died by the banks of a stream or lake about 3.2 million years ago, her body quickly buried by sediments that preserved her bones until their rediscovery in the 20th century. That night, as Johansson's team celebrated their extraordinary find in camp, someone played the Beatles' song Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds on a tape recorder, and somehow the name Lucy stuck, becoming one of the most recognizable names in all of science, though the skeleton also bears the Ethiopian name Dinkanish, meaning "you are marvelous," which seems equally appropriate for a fossil that would revolutionize our understanding of human origins. Lucy's skeleton revealed with stunning clarity that these ancient hominins walked upright on two legs, her pelvis, femur, and foot bones all showing unmistakable adaptations for bipedalism. Yet her relatively small brain demonstrated conclusively that upright walking evolved long before the expansion of brain size, overturning the long-held assumption that our large brains came first and then enabled other human characteristics to develop. But as remarkable as Lucy was, as much as she taught us about Australopithecus afarensis, she remained a single individual, and there were limits to what could be inferred from one skeleton about how these creatures actually moved, about the mechanics of their gait, about whether they walked in ways truly comparable to modern humans or whether their bipedalism represented something more primitive, more tentative, more experimental. For those answers, science needed something else, something that no skeleton, no matter how complete, could provide. Actual evidence of movement preserved in stone. And that is precisely what Mary Leakey and her team found at Laetoli. Mary Leakey was already a legend in paleoanthropology by the time she arrived at Laetoli in the 1970s. Having worked alongside her famous husband Louis Leakey at Oldoway Gorge and made numerous important discoveries, including the first fossil of Paranthropus boisei, nicknamed Nutcracker Man for its massive jaw and teeth, but she was about to make what many consider the most important discovery of her illustrious career. Laetoli, located in northern Tanzania about 45 kilometers south of Oldoway Gorge, had been known as a fossil site since the 1930s when German archaeologist Ludwig Kohl-Larsen had collected specimens there. But it was not until 1974 that systematic excavations began to reveal the true significance of the locality. The site lies in what is now the eastern Serengeti Plains, a landscape of endless grass broken by occasional acacia trees, and 3.66 million years ago it was not so different, though perhaps slightly more wooded, still open country where herds of ancient animals moved across the plains much as their descendants do today. The geology of the area is dominated by the Laetoli beds, a series of volcanic sediments deposited over millions of years by eruptions from nearby volcanoes including Sadamon, Lemegrut, and Ngorongoro, and it was within these beds, in a layer called the footprint tuff, that the magic happened. The discovery itself, like so many great finds in science, involved an element of chance combined with keen observation and persistence. In 1976, members of Leakey's team were surveying the area when, according to popular accounts, Andrew Hill and other team members began throwing dried elephant dung at each other, as bored scientists apparently do during fieldwork, and when Hill dodged a particularly well-aimed projectile, he fell and found himself face-to-face with tracks preserved in the rock, tracks made by ancient rhinoceroses and antelopes that had walked across volcanic ash millions of years ago. This discovery prompted more careful examination of the area, and over the next 2 years, the team would uncover something far more significant than animal tracks, though those would prove important in their own right for reconstructing the ancient ecosystem. In 1978, team member Paul Abel was systematically excavating at a location designated Site G when he encountered what appeared to be a trail of footprints that looked distinctly different from those of other animals. Footprints that showed a rounded heel, an arch along the foot's length, and forward-pointing toes, including a prominent big toe aligned with the others rather than splayed outward. The team carefully excavated the trail, which extended for approximately 27 meters and contained about 70 individual footprints made by 3 individuals walking in the same direction, 2 larger individuals walking side by side or one behind the other, and a smaller individual, possibly walking in the footsteps of one of the larger ones. The excitement in camp must have been extraordinary as the implications became clear. Here was direct, unambiguous evidence that early hominins walked upright on 2 legs, evidence that was in some ways even more compelling than skeletal remains because it showed the actual result of their locomotion. The prints left by real individuals moving across their landscape 3.66 million years ago, when the volcanic ash on which they walked was dated using radiometric techniques, comparing the age of volcanic minerals in the ash to known decay rates of radioactive isotopes. The result was stunning: 3.66 million years, making these by far the oldest footprints definitely attributable to upright walking hominins known at that time. The footprints themselves tell a remarkably detailed story when analyzed by experts trained in reading such trace fossils. Each print shows a deep impression of the heel, indicating that these individuals were heel-strike walkers like modern humans, landing on the heel and then rolling forward across the foot to push off with the toes, a gait pattern that is energetically efficient and allows for sustained walking over long distances, unlike the flat-footed or toe-walking patterns seen in apes. The prints show an arch along the length of the foot, another distinctly human characteristic that helps absorb shock during walking and running, and the big toe is aligned with the other toes, pointing forward rather than angling outward as in apes who use it for grasping branches. The stride length is relatively short, suggesting that these were not tall individuals, which matches what we know from Lucy and other Australopithecus afarensis skeletons about their small stature. And some researchers have identified variations in print size that suggest the three individuals differed in body size, leading to speculation about their relationships. Were they a family group, perhaps an adult male, an adult female, and a juvenile? We cannot know for certain, but the fact that they walked together in the same direction at what appears to be the same time has sparked countless imaginative reconstructions of the scene. Were they foraging together, moving from one feeding area to another? Were they traveling to a water source? Were they fleeing from some danger or simply going about their daily business? The footprints cannot tell us, but they make these ancient ancestors seem suddenly, poignantly real, individuals with lives and relationships, not just dry bones in museum drawers. Analysis of the footprints using modern biomechanical techniques has revealed that while the Laetoli trackmakers walked in a manner fundamentally similar to modern humans, there were subtle differences that hint at the transitional nature of their anatomy. Researchers have created 3D models of the prints, compared them to prints made by modern humans and apes, analyzed the depth patterns that reveal how weight was distributed during the walking cycle, and concluded that these ancient hominins walked with a slightly different gait than we do, perhaps with more bend in the knee and hip, perhaps with a slightly less efficient stride, but nonetheless walking fully upright and bipedally, not knuckle walking or moving with the bent hip, bent knee shuffle that characterizes bipedal walking in chimpanzees. The significance of the Laetoli footprints for understanding human evolution cannot be overstated. Before their discovery, there was considerable debate about when bipedalism evolved and whether it preceded or followed the expansion of brain size, tool use, and other supposedly human characteristics, but the Laetoli prints provided definitive proof that upright walking came first, appearing millions of years before tool manufacture became common, before brain size began its dramatic expansion, before anything we might recognize as culturally human emerged. This overturned previous models that had assumed large brains drove human evolution, leading to tool use which in turn favored upright walking to free the hands, revealing instead that the sequence was reversed. Bipedalism came first, setting the stage for later developments. But why did bipedalism evolve in the first place? What selective pressures favored creatures who walked upright instead of moving on all fours like their primate relatives? This question has generated numerous hypotheses over the decades, each with its supporters and detractors, each attempting to explain one of the most fundamental transitions in human evolution. The traditional savanna hypothesis proposed that as forests gave way to grasslands, early hominins needed to walk upright to see over tall grass, to spot predators and prey from a distance. But this explanation has fallen out of favor as evidence has accumulated that early bipedal hominins lived not in open savanna but in mixed woodland grassland habitats where visibility was not necessarily a major issue. Other hypotheses focus on energetics, noting that upright walking is more energy efficient than quadrupedal locomotion when traveling long distances, allowing hominins to cover more ground with less effort, a significant advantage in environments where food and water sources might be widely scattered. Studies comparing the energy costs of bipedal versus quadrupedal locomotion have shown that humans can walk much more efficiently than chimpanzees moving on all fours, though the advantage disappears at running speeds, suggesting that bipedalism evolved for walking, not running. Still, other researchers have emphasized thermoregulation, pointing out that an upright posture reduces the body surface area exposed to direct sunlight during the hottest parts of the day, allowing bipedal hominins to remain active when quadrupedal animals must seek shade, and that standing upright catches more of the cooling breeze available above ground level. Or perhaps bipedalism was favored because it freed the hands for carrying food, allowing hominins to gather more resources and transport them back to a home base to share with offspring or mates, a behavior that would have required significant intelligence and social cooperation, but which offered substantial reproductive advantages. The truth, as is often the case in evolution, probably involves multiple factors working in concert rather than a single driving force. Bipedalism may have been favored by a combination of energetic efficiency, improved thermoregulation, ability to carry objects, and perhaps factors we have not even considered, emerging in a particular environmental and social context where creatures who could walk upright gained advantages in survival and reproduction, gradually becoming more specialized for this unusual form of locomotion over millions of years. What the Laetoli footprints tell us with certainty is that by 3.66 million years ago, the transition was essentially complete. These hominins walked upright as their primary mode of terrestrial locomotion, even if they retained some climbing ability as insurance against ground-based predators. The scenario that produced the footprints can be reconstructed with reasonable confidence from geological and paleontological evidence. Approximately 3.66 million years ago, Mount Satamon, a volcano located about 20 kilometers from Laetoli, erupted, sending a cloud of fine volcanic ash across the surrounding landscape. This was not a catastrophic explosive eruption but a more gentle effusive event, the kind that deposits a relatively thin layer of ash rather than burying everything under meters of volcanic debris, and the ash that fell at Laetoli was particularly fine-grained, with a texture almost like powder. Shortly after the ash fell, while it was still loose and dry, rain began to fall, a light rain that was enough to wet the ash but not so heavy as to wash it away, and the wetted ash took on a consistency rather like wet cement, soft enough to take impressions but cohesive enough to hold shape. It was during this narrow window of opportunity, perhaps lasting only a few hours or at most a day or two, that the tracks were made, not just by the three hominins but by an astonishing variety of animals. Elephants, horses, rhinos, buffalo, hyenas, birds including guinea fowl, insects, even raindrops left impressions that would be preserved, creating a snapshot of life at this moment in the Pliocene. Then, before wind or further rain could erase the tracks, Mount Satamon erupted again, sending another layer of ash across the landscape, sealing the prints beneath a protective blanket. Over time, additional layers of volcanic and sedimentary material accumulated on top, and the wetted ash gradually hardened into tuff, a type of rock formed from consolidated volcanic ash, preserving the footprints in exquisite detail. Every crack and wrinkle in the ancient skin visible in some of the best preserved prints, until erosion and tectonic activity began to expose the footprint tuff at the surface millions of years later, waiting for Mary Leakey and her team to recognize their significance. Since the initial discovery at Site G, additional footprint sites have been found at Laetoli, including Site S, discovered in 2015 about 150 meters south of the original trackway and containing footprints that appear to have been made at the same time, during the same brief window when the ash was wet and receptive, suggesting that perhaps more than 3 individuals were moving across this landscape that day. The Site S prints include tracks from an individual who appears to have been significantly larger than any of the Site G track makers, possibly a large male Australopithecus afarensis, though the interpretation remains contested. Even more intriguing is Site A, where a separate set of footprints was partially excavated in 1976 but initially dismissed as possibly having been made by a bear walking upright on its hind legs. Bears can and do occasionally walk bipedally, and their hind footprints can show some superficially human-like features, so the interpretation seemed plausible at the time. But this changed in 2019 when an international team led by Dartmouth University anthropologist Jeremy De Silva re-excavated the Site A tracks and conducted a detailed comparative analysis. The reanalysis revealed that the Site A footprints were definitely not made by a bear. Bears have narrow heels and fan-shaped toes that often show claw marks, and they walk with an unstable, side-to-side wobbling motion when bipedal, taking very wide steps, none of which matched the Site A prints, which showed a rounded heel, forward-pointing toes without claws, and a stable trackway with one foot placed directly in front of the other. These were clearly made by a bipedal hominin. But when compared in detail to the prints at Sites G and S, significant differences emerged. The Site A tracks were wider, showed a different pattern of weight distribution, and recorded an unusual gait where the trackmaker appeared to be cross-stepping, placing each foot across the midline of travel rather than in parallel tracks. The implications are startling. If the side tracks were made by a different species of hominin, as some researchers now believe, it means that at least two different species of upright walking early humans lived in the same area at the same time, walking across the same ash-covered plain within hours or perhaps even minutes of each other. This challenges the long-held view that Australopithecus afarensis was the only hominin species in East Africa during this time period, suggesting instead that hominin diversity was greater than previously appreciated, with different species perhaps specializing in different aspects of the environment or exhibiting different locomotor strategies even while sharing the same landscape. Who were these other hominins? We do not know, as no skeletal remains have been definitively associated with the site of tracks, but candidates include other Australopithecine species known from fragmentary fossils of approximately the same age, or possibly even members of an as-yet undiscovered species. The recognition that multiple hominin species may have coexisted, sometimes in the same locations, has profound implications for understanding human evolution, suggesting that our family tree is bushier than we thought. With multiple evolutionary experiments happening simultaneously, most of which eventually went extinct, leaving only one lineage to eventually give rise to our own genus Homo. The world that these ancient hominins inhabited was both beautiful and dangerous, a landscape where survival required constant vigilance, intimate knowledge of the environment, and probably close cooperation with other members of one's social group. Predators included massive big cats, hyenas, and possibly even large crocodiles near water sources, all of which would have viewed small hominins as potential prey, and without the protection of large body size, formidable weapons, or the ability to sprint at high speeds, early hominins would have been vulnerable, probably sleeping in trees at night for safety and remaining alert during the day, perhaps posting sentries while others foraged. Food sources would have included fruits, seeds, leaves, and roots from various plants, possibly tubers dug from the ground, insects and their larvae, bird eggs when they could be found, and perhaps occasionally small animals caught opportunistically, though there is no evidence that Australopithecus afarensis was a systematic hunter. Recent studies analyzing the carbon isotopes in fossilized tooth enamel from Australopithecus individuals have revealed surprisingly that these hominins ate very little meat, subsisting almost entirely on plant materials, contradicting earlier assumptions that meat-eating was a crucial driver of early human evolution. The social structure of Australopithecus afarensis remains a matter of speculation, but clues from their anatomy and from studies of modern primates suggest some possibilities. The marked size difference between males and females, with males being significantly larger, is called sexual dimorphism, and in modern primates this pattern is typically associated with polygynous mating systems where dominant males compete for access to multiple females, forming groups with one or a few males and multiple females and their offspring. If this pattern held for Australopithecus afarensis, the three trackmakers at Laetoli might indeed have been a family group, perhaps a male, female, and juvenile traveling together across their territory. Communication would have been through vocalizations, gestures, and probably facial expressions, though whether these hominins possessed anything approaching language is unknown and unknowable from the fossil evidence. The evolution of true language, with its grammar and syntax and ability to discuss abstract concepts and events distant in time and space, probably occurred much later in human evolution, but that does not mean Australopithecus afarensis was mute or unable to communicate complex information. Modern apes have sophisticated communication systems even without language, and there is no reason to think our ancient ancestors were less capable. As we fast forward through the subsequent millions of years, we see the descendants of these early bipedal apes continuing to evolve, with the genus Australopithecus persisting in various forms until about 2 million years ago, while new forms emerged including the robust Australopithecines or Paranthropus species with their massive jaws and teeth adapted for processing tough, fibrous vegetation, and crucially the first members of our own genus Homo, appearing around 2.8 to 2.5 million years ago. In East Africa, these early Homo species showed modest increases in brain size and body size compared to their Australopithecine ancestors, and they were the first hominins to manufacture stone tools systematically, using sharp flakes to process meat and plant materials in ways that would have been impossible with teeth and hands alone. The Laetoli footprints have become iconic in paleoanthropology, reproduced in textbooks and museums around the world, inspiring countless artistic reconstructions of the scene, becoming perhaps the most evocative single piece of evidence for human evolution because they make the ancient past seem suddenly, powerfully present. These were real individuals who walked this earth, who felt the ash beneath their feet, who breathed the same air we breathe, who looked up at the same stars we see, though they could not have imagined that their footprints would be discovered and marveled at millions of years later by creatures whose existence they could never have anticipated. Since their discovery, the footprints have been studied and restudied using increasingly sophisticated techniques, photographed and cast, digitized in 3D, analyzed with computer models that simulate the mechanics of ancient walking, and each new analysis has added details to our understanding while confirming the basic interpretation. These were upright walking hominins, almost certainly Australopithecus afarensis, moving across their landscape in a manner fundamentally similar to how we walk. Today, though perhaps not identical, and their existence 3.66 million years ago demonstrates that bipedalism is ancient in the human lineage, older than big brains, older than stone tools, older than everything else we associate with being human except perhaps a social structure involving long-term bonds between individuals. The preservation of the Laetoli footprints is itself remarkable, requiring a precise sequence of events that are rarely replicated in the geological record. Volcanic ash of just the right consistency, rain at just the right time, no strong winds or heavy rain to destroy the prints before they hardened, a second ash fall to seal them, then millions of years of burial and lithification without the prints being destroyed by geological processes, and finally erosion exposing them at exactly the right moment for human eyes to see them before weathering erased them forever. Each step in this chain had to occur perfectly, making the print's existence almost miraculous, and reminding us that for every footprint preserved, countless others were made and lost, leaving no trace. In 1996, the exposed trackway at Site G was reburied under several layers of protective materials to prevent deterioration, as exposure to weather was causing the tuff to crack and erode, threatening to destroy these irreplaceable fossils. The decision to rebury was controversial, with some scientists arguing that the footprints should remain accessible for study and public viewing, but ultimately the need for preservation won out. And now the actual prints lie protected beneath sand and soil, while high-quality casts and 3D scans allow continued research without damaging the originals. Recent advances in dating techniques have refined our understanding of when the footprints were made, with current estimates placing them at 3.66 million years old, give or take a few thousand years, and future research will undoubtedly continue to extract new information from these remarkable fossils, perhaps using techniques that have not yet been invented. Already, researchers have analyzed the prints for evidence of pathology or injury, looked for signs of how the track makers were moving, walking casually versus running or moving with urgency, compared the biomechanics to those of modern humans and other primates, and even identified what may be skin texture preserved in some of the best prints. The broader significance of the Laetoli footprints extends beyond just proving that Australopithecus afarensis walked upright. They have become a powerful symbol in debates about what it means to be human, about where we draw the line between human and non-human in our evolutionary past, about how we conceptualize our relationship to other primates and to the natural world generally. Those three individuals walking across the ash plain 3.66 million years ago were not human in the modern sense. Their brains were too small, they lacked language and technology. They were as much at home in trees as on the ground. Yet they walked on two legs as we do, and in that most fundamental human characteristic they were like us, making them simultaneously alien and familiar, other and kin. As we contemplate those ancient footprints, we are confronted with deep questions about time and change, about continuity and transformation, about how something entirely new can emerge from gradual modifications of what came before. Evolution is not a ladder leading inexorably upward to humanity, but a branching bush with countless dead ends and extinct lineages, and the fact that we exist today, that we can study and wonder about our ancestors, is in no way inevitable but rather the result of countless contingencies, fortunate accidents, and chance events stretching back through deep time, making our existence both more precious and more precarious than we might like to believe. The study of human origins continues to advance rapidly, with new fossil discoveries reshaping our understanding every few years, new dating techniques allowing us to place finds more precisely in time, new analytical methods extracting information from fossils that previous generations of scientists could never have imagined, and perhaps most excitingly, new genetic techniques that can sometimes recover ancient DNA from fossils, allowing us to read the actual genetic blueprints of our ancestors and trace the flow of genes through time, though these techniques have so far been limited to relatively recent fossils less than 1 million years old, far too young to include Australopithecus afarensis or the Laetoli trackmakers. The landscape at Laetoli today is dry and dusty, the sediments exposed in eroded gullies and ravines, the ancient ash layers visible as lighter bands in the brown earth, and it requires considerable imagination to envision this place as it was 3.66 million years ago, more wooded, probably better watered, home to herds of ancient animals and small bands of upright walking apes whose lives we can barely imagine. Yet the footprints make that imaginative leap easier, more concrete, more personal, because they record actual moments in actual lives, and as we study them we are, in a very real sense, looking back through time at our own heritage, at the deep roots of human existence stretching back through the Pliocene into even earlier epochs. The individuals who made these prints had no way of knowing that they were participating in one of evolution's great experiments, that their lineage would eventually give rise to a species that would transform the planet, that would develop language and art and science, that would walk on the moon and send machines to the edge of the solar system, that would split atoms and sequence genomes and ponder its own origins. They were simply living their lives, moving through their world, doing what evolution had shaped them to do, and that is perhaps the most profound lesson the footprints teach us, that evolution has no foresight, no plan, no ultimate goal, but simply responds to immediate circumstances, favoring whatever works in the moment without regard for what might come later. The 3 trackmakers at Laetoli have been dead for more than 3.5 million years. Their bones presumably lost forever, scattered by scavengers or dissolved by groundwater, leaving no trace except these footprints in the ash. Yet through those footprints they achieve a kind of immortality, remembered and studied and wondered about by their unimaginably distant descendants, becoming in some sense more famous in death than they ever could have been in life, transformed from anonymous individuals into icons of human evolution, representatives of an entire species and a crucial moment in our history. When we look at casts of the Laetoli footprints in museums or study photographs and 3D models, we are looking at something profoundly moving, evidence of real individuals moving through a real landscape, leaving impressions that would last for millions of years, bridging the vast gulf of time between their world and ours. And in those impressions we see ourselves reflected, for whatever else they were, whatever differences separate us from them, they walked upright as we do, they moved through their world on 2 legs, and in that fundamental characteristic they were already human in ways that matter, already launched on the trajectory that would eventually lead to us, already taking those first steps, literally and metaphorically, toward humanity. The volcanic ash that preserved the footprints was both curse and blessing to the ancient animals who encountered it. The eruption itself would have been terrifying, darkening the sky, covering the landscape in powder that stung the eyes and choked the lungs. Yet the ash also fertilized the soil, and within weeks or months after the eruption the landscape would have been greening again. Plants growing with renewed vigor in the mineral-rich soil, and life going on as it always does. Animals adapting to changed circumstances, finding new ways to survive and thrive. Evolution continuing its endless dance of variation and selection, death and birth, extinction and speciation, playing out across millions of years with these footprints representing just one brief moment in that vast drama. As we conclude this journey back through time to the Laetoli footprints and the world of Australopithecus afarensis, we are left with a sense of wonder and connection. Wonder at the depth of time and the power of evolution to create such diversity of form and function. Connection to these ancient ancestors whose footsteps we can still trace millions of years later. And perhaps most importantly, a recognition that we are not separate from nature but part of it. Products of the same evolutionary processes that shaped all life on Earth, inheritors of a deep history stretching back not just millions but billions of years, and that our own species, Homo sapiens, for all our technology and culture, for all our cities and science and art, remains fundamentally connected to those three figures walking across the ash plain 3.66 million years ago, connected by an unbroken chain of ancestors stretching back through time, each generation giving rise to the next, adaptations accumulating, changes, happening so slowly as to be imperceptible in any single lifetime but adding up over millions of years to produce the astonishing transformation from small-brained, ape-like creatures to modern humans with our capacity for language, abstract thought, symbolic expression, and technological innovation. The Laetoli footprints force us to reckon with deep time in ways that few other fossils can, because footprints are ephemeral by nature, lasting only moments under normal circumstances before wind and rain erase them. Yet these particular prints have lasted more than 3.5 million years, preserved through an extraordinary conjunction of geological circumstances that reads almost like intentional design, though it was nothing but chance, blind luck, the universe conspiring through purely natural processes to leave us this gift from the deep past, this window into a world we can never visit but can only imagine based on fragments of evidence painstakingly extracted from rock and sediment and ash. The preservation of trace fossils like footprints is generally much rarer than the preservation of body fossils like bones and teeth, because tracks require very specific conditions to form and even more specific conditions to be preserved long enough to fossilize. Unlike bones, which are made of durable mineralized tissue and can survive burial under many different circumstances, this makes the Laetoli footprints even more remarkable, even more precious as windows into the behavior and locomotion of ancient creatures, showing us not just what these animals looked like based on their skeletal remains, but how they actually moved through their environment. Information that cannot be gleaned from bones alone, no matter how complete the skeleton. Modern paleoanthropologists continue to debate the finer points of Australopithecus afarensis locomotion, with some researchers arguing that the Laetoli footprints and the skeletal evidence both support a form of bipedalism essentially identical to modern human walking, while others point to subtle differences in foot anatomy, limb proportions, and print morphology as evidence that these early hominins walked in a somewhat different manner, perhaps with more flexed knees and hips, perhaps with a slightly different foot strike pattern, differences that would have been visible if we could somehow watch them walking but which are difficult to reconstruct with certainty from fossils alone. Experimental studies have attempted to resolve these questions by having modern humans walk in ways that might mimic ancient gait patterns, creating footprints under various conditions and comparing them to the Laetoli prints, or by building computer models that simulate walking with different combinations of skeletal features and seeing which models produce footprints most similar to those preserved at Laetoli. These studies generally support the conclusion that while Australopithecus afarensis walked somewhat differently than we do, the differences were relatively minor, subtle variations on a theme rather than fundamental differences in locomotor strategy, making these ancient hominins recognizably similar to us in their basic mode of moving through the world. The question of why three individuals were walking together has sparked considerable speculation and imaginative reconstruction. Were they a family, a mated pair with offspring, foraging together as modern hunter-gatherers often do with family groups moving through their territory as a unit? Were they simply members of a larger band who happened to be traveling in the same direction at the same time, with other individuals perhaps walking parallel paths that have not been preserved or have not yet been discovered. The close spacing of the prints and the fact that one individual may have been deliberately stepping in the footprints of another suggests some level of social cohesion and awareness of each other, not just random individuals happening to cross the same ground at the same time, and this hints at social complexity, at relationships and bonds between individuals that we can only guess at from our position millions of years in the future. Studies of modern primates, particularly chimpanzees and bonobos who are our closest living relatives, provide some insights into what Australopithecus afarensis social structure might have been like. Though we must be cautious about drawing direct parallels since 3.5 million years of independent evolution have surely produced significant differences between these modern apes and our ancient ancestors. Chimpanzees live in fission fusion societies where a larger community breaks up into smaller foraging parties that change composition from day to day, individuals coming together and splitting apart as circumstances dictate, and perhaps Australopithecus afarensis lived similarly, with fluid social groups that allowed flexibility in response to resource availability and other environmental pressures. The cognitive abilities of Australopithecus afarensis remain mysterious, as brains do not fossilize and we must infer mental capabilities from indirect evidence like brain size, tool use, and social complexity. With brain volumes only slightly larger than those of chimpanzees, these hominins probably did not possess cognitive abilities vastly exceeding those of modern apes, yet they successfully inhabited challenging environments for millions of years, suggesting considerable intelligence, memory, learning ability, and social sophistication even without the expanded brain size that would come later in human evolution. The landscape of human evolution has been revolutionized in recent decades by the recognition that multiple hominin species often coexisted, sometimes in the same regions, sometimes even hybridizing with each other, as we now know happened between Homo sapiens, Neanderthals, and Denisovans in much more recent times. This realization has destroyed the old notion of a simple linear progression from ape to human, replacing it with a much more complex picture of multiple lineages branching and sometimes reconnecting, most going extinct but a few persisting and giving rise to further diversity, creating a tangled bush of human evolution rather than a tidy ladder, and the possibility that multiple species left footprints at Laetoli fits perfectly with this new understanding. The extinct volcanoes that dominate the landscape around Laetoli remain as monuments to the geological processes that both created and preserved these remarkable footprints. Their slopes eroded over millions of years but still recognizable as the sources of the ash that buried the tracks. Mount Satamon, in particular, stands as an unwitting collaborator in preserving evidence of human origins, its eruptions providing the material that would capture and preserve these footprints, linking volcanic activity to the story of human evolution in ways that could never have been anticipated. As we think about the world of 3.66 million years ago, we must remember that this was not a static environment but a dynamic one, constantly changing in response to climate fluctuations, tectonic activity, evolutionary pressures, and countless other factors operating across multiple timescales. The Africa of the Pliocene was a continent in transition, with the climate gradually cooling and drying, forests giving way to more open habitats, new species evolving while others went extinct, and early hominins were both responding to these changes and helping to shape their environments through their activities, creating feedback loops between organism and environment that would eventually lead to the dramatic transformations of the Pleistocene epoch and the emergence of our own genus Homo. The technology available to modern paleoanthropologists has advanced enormously since Mary Leakey first uncovered the Laetoli footprints in the 1970s. With techniques like 3D scanning, photogrammetry, CT imaging, isotopic analysis, and computer simulation allowing researchers to extract far more information from fossils than was possible just a few decades ago. The Laetoli footprints have been reanalyzed multiple times using these new techniques, each analysis adding layers of detail and nuance to our understanding, and we can expect that future technologies will enable even deeper insights, perhaps revealing details about the track makers that we cannot currently even imagine investigating. The emotional impact of the Laetoli footprints on those who study them or view them in museums or photographs seems almost universal, as if something about footprints touches us in ways that bones and teeth cannot, perhaps because footprints record movement and behavior, capturing a moment in a life rather than just the physical structure of a body, or perhaps because we all leave footprints every day and can immediately relate to this most basic form of trace evidence, making the connection across millions of years feel more direct, more personal, more affecting. As paleontologists continue to explore the fossil-rich deposits of East Africa, new discoveries continue to reshape and refine our understanding of human origins, with each major find generating headlines and spurring debates about phylogeny, adaptation, and the forces that drove human evolution. The discovery of Australopithecus ramidus in Ethiopia, dating to 4.4 million years ago and showing even more primitive features than Australopithecus afarensis, pushed back the origin of bipedalism even further, while finds like Australopithecus sediba and hominality have added complexity and confusion to our understanding of the transition from Australopithecines to early Homo, demonstrating that we still have much to learn about our own origins despite more than a century of intensive research. The Laetoli footprints serve as a reminder that fossilization is an extraordinarily rare event, that the vast majority of organisms that have ever lived left no trace in the fossil record, their bodies decomposing completely or being destroyed by geological processes before they could fossilize, and that every fossil we do find represents a minor miracle of preservation, a confluence of circumstances that allowed this particular specimen to survive through millions of years of tectonic upheaval, erosion, weathering, and chance discovery by creatures who could recognize its significance. For every fossil in a museum collection, countless others remain undiscovered, still buried in sediments around the world or already destroyed by erosion and other processes, making every discovery precious and irreplaceable. The three individuals who walked across the ash at Laetoli could not have known that they were making history, that their footsteps would be preserved and studied millions of years later, that they would become famous in death in ways that would have been incomprehensible to them in life. They were simply going about their daily business, moving through their environment as they had done countless times before, and the fact that this particular journey happened to be preserved while millions of others were lost to time is pure chance, an accident of geology and timing that has given us an extraordinary gift, a window into a moment that would otherwise be lost forever in the depths of time. The study of human origins raises profound philosophical questions about identity, continuity, and what it means to be human. If we could somehow travel back in time to meet those three individuals at Laetoli, would we recognize them as fellow humans despite their small brains and ape-like faces? Or would they seem more like animals, more like chimpanzees than people? Where exactly do we draw the line between human and non-human? And is such a line even meaningful given that evolution is a gradual process with no sharp boundaries? Each generation slightly different from the one before, but the changes only becoming significant when accumulated over thousands or millions of generations. The Laetoli footprints challenge us to think about these questions, to recognize that humanity is not a fixed category but a fluid one, that our ancestors graded imperceptibly into non-human primates if we go back far enough, and that the characteristics we think of as distinctively human emerged piecemeal over millions of years rather than appearing all at once in some moment of transformation. As we contemplate the preservation and study of the Laetoli footprints, we become acutely aware of the fragility of the fossil record and the vulnerability of these irreplaceable specimens to destruction through natural weathering, vandalism, or even well-intentioned but poorly executed research. The decision to rebury the main trackway at Site G was made to protect the prints from deterioration, but it came with costs, removing them from view and making them less accessible for future study, highlighting the difficult balance that must be struck between preservation and accessibility, between protecting fossils for future generations and making them available for current research and public education. The broader impact of the Laetoli discovery extends far beyond academic paleontology, influencing how the general public thinks about human evolution and our place in nature. Before discoveries like Lucy and the Laetoli footprints, Many people thought of evolution as an abstract concept, a theoretical framework without tangible evidence. But these fossils made evolution concrete and undeniable, showing with stunning clarity that humans are indeed part of the natural world, products of the same evolutionary processes that shaped all life on Earth, connected by ancestry to all other living things and particularly closely related to other primates. A realization that has profound implications for how we understand ourselves and our relationship to the rest of nature. The scientific study of the Laetoli footprints continues to generate new publications and insights, with researchers applying ever more sophisticated analytical techniques to extract information from these precious fossils. Recent studies have used high-resolution 3D scanning to capture every detail of the print morphology, allowing for detailed comparisons with experimental footprints made by modern humans and apes under various conditions. While other researchers have focused on the geological context, trying to understand precisely how the prints were formed and preserved, what the environmental conditions were like at the moment of their creation, and what this tells us about the habitat preferences and behaviors of Australopithecus afarensis. The preservation of the Laetoli footprints required not just the initial formation and burial of the tracks, but also their survival through 3.66 million years of geological history, including tectonic activity associated with the East African Rift System, cycles of erosion and deposition, climate changes that altered rainfall and weathering patterns, and countless other processes that could have destroyed them at any point. The fact that they survived it all is remarkable, and it reminds us that the fossil record is not a complete chronicle of life's history, but a highly fragmentary and biased sample, preserved through accident and discovered through a combination of scientific expertise, persistence, and luck. As we think about the three individuals walking across the ash plain, we might wonder what they were thinking and feeling, whether they experienced anything like human consciousness, whether they had a sense of self and others, whether they worried about the future or remembered the past, whether they felt love and grief and joy. But these questions may be unanswerable, as consciousness leaves no fossil trace and we can only speculate based on brain size, behavior, and comparisons with modern primates. Yet the fact that they walk together suggests social bonds of some kind, relationships that connected these individuals to each other in ways that transcended mere physical proximity, hinting at an inner life that we can glimpse only dimly through the mists of time. The landscape around Laetoli today is protected as part of the Ngorongoro Conservation Area, a UNESCO World Heritage Site that preserves not just the footprints but the broader ecosystem and cultural heritage of the region, including the pastoral Maasai people who have inhabited this area for centuries. The juxtaposition of deep human evolutionary history with contemporary human culture creates a powerful sense of continuity, a reminder that we are still here, still walking across African landscapes as our ancestors did millions of years ago, though now with a consciousness of our own history and origins that those ancient trackmakers could never have possessed. The story of the Laetoli footprints is ultimately a story about connection between past and present, between humans and nature, between individual moments and vast sweeps of evolutionary time. Those three sets of footprints, preserved by chance and discovered by persistence, connect us to our own deep past in visceral, immediate ways that abstract knowledge of genetics and fossils cannot quite match, making the distant past feel suddenly close, making those ancient ancestors feel almost like people we might know, separated from us not by unbridgeable gulfs of difference but by time and circumstance, fellow travelers on the long road of evolution that has led, through countless twists and turns, extinctions and speciations, adaptations and accidents, to the present moment and to us, standing here contemplating their footsteps and marveling at the journey. As we close this exploration of the world 3.5 million years ago, as we mentally step back from those volcanic ash plains and return to the present, we carry with us a deeper appreciation for the depth of human history, for the millions of years of evolution that preceded the emergence of our own species, for the patience and skill required to extract this history from fragmentary evidence scattered across the globe, and for the remarkable fact that we, the descendants of those ancient track makers, have developed the ability to reconstruct our own origins, to read the story written in rocks and bones and footprints, to connect across the vast expanses of time to meet our ancestors and understand, at least partially, where we came from and how we came to be. The Laetoli footprints stand as testimony to the power of scientific inquiry, the importance of preserving our natural and cultural heritage, and the profound connection between humanity and the natural world. A connection that began millions of years ago when three small figures walked across volcanic ash under an African sky, leaving behind footprints that would last long enough for their unimaginably distant descendants to discover, study, and marvel at, closing the circle of time and connecting past to present in the most tangible way imaginable, through the simple act of placing one foot in front of the other and walking forward into an unknowable future that would eventually lead to us.